That's the hardest thing to arrive at because it's easy to learn lenses, it's easier to learn lighting, it's easier to learn the technicals, but the interpersonal collaborations in a very stressful environment, like, that's when I see cinematographers with a lot of experience is really shining because they know how to pull the best out of everyone that they work with.
Good day, Taylor Lee. How are you today, Taylor?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your podcast, Ben.
Oh, I am so thrilled that you're here. Your films, I love visually stunning films, and I feel like we can moved away from that given new cameras and things like that. It's so hard to tell now, like what a visually stunning film is. Like when you're watching like short films, what stands out to you as a visually stunning film? What surprises you when you're watching a short film and a filmmaker like surprises you visually?
Huh. I think recently I've been pretty drawn to filmmakers who, I guess to put it one way, are very aware that an audience is watching the film and that the audience wants to be surprised,
Hmm.
and who really take advantage of the fact that there's ways to, like, wake the audience up halfway through. For example, like, I remember I saw recently the film about dry grasses. It was at the New York Film Festival a couple years ago, and there's a sequence in the middle. I was at, like, an 8 p.m. screening, I was a little tired, I was up in the mezzanine, it was, like, 10 p.m. by this point in the film, it's like a 4-hour film, and then, there's a sequence that just wakes the audience up, and after that, I was like, "Wow." It was just so interesting. So, yeah, I've been really drawn to those type of movies. Have you seen that film before?
I have not.
Yeah,
That
it was a really lovely moment.
that is stunning. So, you're the recipient of the 2025 Grad Film Volker Bahnemann Award for Outstanding Cinematography. When you found out you got that, what did that mean to you?
It's a huge honor. I came from a background in software engineering, and then during COVID, I pivoted to film, and so I applied to grad school, and as I was deciding grad schools, I was looking to NYU, all the other big film schools, and I was tracking a lot of the cinematographers that came out of NYU graduate film, and some of them their work was just phenomenal, and I had known about this award, and it's not really an award that says you're the best cinematographer of that year, it's just a gesture of, like, appreciation for your cinematography contributions to the whole community, and so in my time at NYU, I really devoted myself to the curriculum and to supporting my classmates, so it really meant a lot to me to be in that continuation of the legacy of the award, and to be the award ceremony was at Airy Rental in New York, and it was a
Cool.
really nice night.
Did you know when you were a software engineer that you were gonna do this? Was this always in the back of your head of something that you really wanted to do, or is it something you found out as you went on as, like, a hobby? You're like, "Oh, I'm good at this."
No, I did not know. I grew up without a television, actually, so I hardly watched movies as a
Wow.
kid. Film wasn't really on my radar until I bought a camera in college, like, when I was 18, and then I just started taking photos, and it kept going from there. I ended up choosing to minor in film because I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I was like, "Okay, I'll get a film minor," and then I started taking videos, and then it snowballed into a place where I was just a little dissatisfied with working a remote job, and I was during COVID, so I was tempted to make a leap, and I just did it, and here I am. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, did you feel like that a lot of your classmates were just, like, so into different films, had this film knowledge coming in just from having a TV growing up? Was that ever an issue where you felt like, "Man, I need to watch more films?" Or the flip side of that argument is, right, if you aren't marinating in all this stuff, you can come to things with a new perspective.
I definitely feel like I could grow as a student of the film craft, even still. In my first couple years of grad school, I was trying to watch, like, a movie a day to really catch up.
Mm.
'Cause I think there is something to be said about learning from the greats. In terms of a fresh perspective, no, I think I still need to watch more movies, honestly. I think it helps.
It's it's so hard though, right? Because that's why I love watching shorts, is it like you can have 15 minutes where you're really focused on it, but, like, nowadays with an hour and a half and then cutting it into all the different things you have to do, it's so hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good training ground for me as a cinematographer doing shorts. It's because each project is so individual and unique, and with each project is different directors and different references. Sometimes with my prep with directors, I'll ask them to give me, like, 10 of their favorite films, and then just
Ooh.
watching that is, like, another film school in of itself to really know what gets people going, what type of techniques, and the emotion, and all that stuff.
So looking back now on film school, was it something that you're glad that you did, right? So you obviously were like, "Okay, let's pivot to going into film." You could have learned from YouTube, you could have done a variety of different things. Are you glad that you went to NYU? And then generally speaking, like, if somebody's in a software engineer listening to this, what would you advise them in terms of film school? Like, so the argument also is like the top ones are the most important because you're gonna get the bang for the buck for the money. So can you tell me like what your perspective is now on the investment of going to film school?
Yeah. I still learn from YouTube all the time. I
Yeah.
probably still learn more from YouTube than anything else. You should see my YouTube algorithm, it's all part of it. I really struggled with this before going to film school, mainly because of the financial aspect. I think that's the
Right.
one huge drawback that everyone talks about, and it's
Yeah.
the biggest reality of it. In terms of my experience in film school, I was really happy with the curriculum, the professors, and the students. And so it's all that you could ask for. And they say film school, it's really about the people you meet, not even the professors who give you opportunities, but with your cohort of filmmakers who hopefully will work with for a long time. And so I had a great experience. I can't speak for all the film schools out there. I'm sure there's a lot
Right.
of good ones also, but
Yeah.
um, I learned pretty much everything I know from film school and from YouTube and really just doing it. I think that
Yeah.
film school offers you an opportunity to just keep doing it. Like in my first year, you made 3 like distinct short films, but then so it would be like 6 weeks of classes, a production period, then you edit, then you would do that each semester, and then 1 over winter break. But in the 6 weeks that you're, like, prepping for that film, you're also shooting every weekend with your classmates. So it's really just like a boot camp, and if you could do that on your own without film school, that's amazing, but sometimes you need that institutional push and that financial incentive of putting a lot of money and resources into it, really, just it's like joining a team.
So, what drew you specifically to being a cinematographer? So, we'll talk about your directorial debut in a second, but you started out, you were doing a lot of DP work, cinematography work. What drew you specifically to that angle of filmmaking?
I had always been interested in cameras since I got them, and I didn't really know, like, the differentiations between film crew positions and stuff.
Right.
But I always knew my strength was, like, blending the technical from an engineering side to, like, the creative side,
Yeah.
and so I knew that was the role a cinematographer did. So when I was applying to film school, I thought I would just wanna be a cinematographer, so I applied to AFI and the cinematography track, but then I also applied to some of the more writer-director focused film schools like Columbia, USC, and NYU, and the reason that I applied to film school is because I saw AFI does the cinematography second year silent films. I don't know how to 4-minute silent films. They shoot it
Ooh,
on 35 and then they post it online. So I still
that's
remember in
cool.
COVID, I saw their and they're just beautiful. I saw their selection and I was like, "Oh, I wanna be a cinematographer, like, that's what I wanna do, just, like, make these images," and that's why I wanted to become a cinematographer. But then I didn't get into AFI, yeah.
And so when you're choosing to work with a director, what is that conversation like? You mentioned earlier that you asked them like what your favorite films are. Like, how do you make sure that you have that connection of being able to work together and then also translate that vision from the director to what you're seeing through your lens?
Yeah, I think it's those first introductory calls, which is usually something like this or over a coffee. It's always the hardest because 'cause they'll send the script, maybe a lookbook or a pitch deck, and then get face to face and try to see if you're the right match, and then a lot of
Right.
times directors come with, "Okay, how do you see the movie?" and, like, "How would you shoot it?" Which is a really tricky question because it's that collaboration is the key part of it, and if I just come in and say, "This is how I'd shoot it," probably wouldn't turn out that great.
Yeah.
So, in those first conversations, it's really firstly, for me, it's figuring out if I would wanna spend a extended period of time with these people, 'cause weeks, months.
Right.
And that's very important, I realized. And then after that, it's, do I see my process as a cinematographer being in line with their process? Because that's probably the next most important. Do we see filmmaking as a whole as the same? Not necessarily in terms of like lighting and all that stuff, but really just where do they come from it and how do I come from it? And then would that be in sync with each other? And then the smaller, but still very important, like how do you see the movie? What type of film are you is the final product?
That's amazing. So, when I asked regarding your cinematography, you sent over the film Shithead as an example, which is a crazy film, by the way. Like, how would you describe, like, your vision on films? If you're looking at that film objectively, just if somehow you could be some other person, what would you say, like, what your stylistic choices are?
The reason I chose that film is because it's quite distinct, actually. The director,
Yeah.
Riley, he has a very bold and unique voice, which I think is why I sent that over to you, because I've shot quite a number of shorts now, and I hope that each is as distinct as a film like that one, which is why I wanted to share it, just because in an ideal world, you would look at several of my films and not see the same cinematographer.
Ooh,
And I know there's a lot of discussions between DPs about, should we have a unique vision, should we not? But
right.
I'm of the camp of no, it should be singular to each one. I'd love to think that the projects I work on at the end of the day are just impactful movies and that there's not a singular visual voice behind
Yeah.
them. Like, it just works. But in the case of that film, Riley and I really approached it of really wanting to be quite bold with our visual language, given the heightened aspects of everything. For those who haven't watched it, it's a fun one. And I think with every frame, we were really pushing to be bold. And I like to do that. It doesn't fit for every project, but I wanted to really go for it. And we were influences on our sleeves. Like Yorgos Lanthimos was a huge influence for that, as are a lot of other contemporary filmmakers in terms of our lensing, our lighting, the visual effects, the makeup, everything.
So do you almost take it as a challenge each new film you're shooting to try to find that distinct voice that sort of gives the connection between you and the director of just, okay, don't maybe not model it off anything I previously done because it's a different relationship with the new director. It's something new. And not, maybe not trying to specifically find something new, but just to try to find that distinct voice that represents the both of you.
Ideally. Yeah,
Yeah.
ideally, that's the goal. I obviously, if you look at my reel, my cinematography reel, you'll see the same cinematographer, but that's just because I choose the best wide shots for the reel, so that doesn't count.
And the crazy part to me, so we'll talk about your directorial debut. You didn't shoot it. So what was the decision behind that? And then like how was it from the other side of the seat? Like you're I assume you met with different cinematographers and you tried to find who to connect with. Like how was that conversation like? Or what was that
Yeah,
conversation like?
I am not good enough to shoot and direct my own films, so that was quite easy from the start. There was not a ch
Why do you say that?
I because since that film, I've directed another short that will be released hopefully sometimes next year. It's and in between that short, that layover that you're talking about and the short, it was like 2 years, and I forgot how hard directing is. It's directing to me is 50 times harder than cinematography, especially at the indie level, because 'cause you're not just directing, you're producing and you're thinking about everything that maybe
Exactly.
at a bigger level you wouldn't be thinking about. So it's just way too hard. I can't manage, and the role of the director is really to have the vision and to communicate that vision to your crew and to your actors, and if I were to shoot it at the same time, that would just be I would need two of myself. But working with Gianni Baldiali for Layover, she was, I think, 3 or 4 years above me in the grad film program, and she
Mm.
was a wonderful cinematographer, and I knew that I admired her work, and I was very intentional in choosing someone that cinematographer I could hand over everything to them and just trust that their work will be better than if I shot it myself. So that was how I approached it. Of course, I'm sure I was annoying on set and nitpicking more than I should have, but at least
Yeah, like
going in.
what lens are you using for this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's something I'm still working on as a director to give control. Yeah.
But you did write it, so what was that experience like? So you would consider like the writer director a little bit of a different thing than the director cinematographer, if that's a thing for people to do. So it's hopping into a different role.
Yeah, definitely. As a writer-director for me, I'm starting to view it as more as a writer-director, that more pure sense of I have this expression that I wanna communicate, or I wanna have other people see something that I'm feeling, and or I wanna evoke something in other people. It's a very pure feeling that we all come to art with, whether photography, painting, music. It's like you have this feeling that you wanna get off your chest, and that's how I view my writing and directing. Whereas for my cinematography, it's not quite that. Of course, it's creative, it's artistic, but it's really that translation from getting something else off of someone else's chest and helping them do
Ooh.
that. And so that's why I could only write and direct every so often, because you only have the bandwidth and the ability to do that every so often. But as a cinematographer, it's a little easier because you could see what they're trying to do and guide them through that.
Do you think this is very interesting, your approach to cinematography. So do you think as like someone gets more experienced and obviously more gets more awards and things like that for cinematography, do you think they become maybe not harder to work with is not maybe not the right phrase, but do you think it becomes harder for a director to communicate their unique vision and then it becomes more about sort of a balance between a cinematographer and, say, a director? Because what the way you explained that was really interesting to me, is that you almost didn't see it as it's still your skill set and your vision and all that, but you almost saw it the way that you said it was almost you saw it as, like, you're communicating the director's vision, whereas I think if you're more advanced or not advanced, but you're more a longer more established cinematographer, it may be harder for a director to be able to get through with their vision.
That's a really good point that I've been struggling with myself or as a cinematographer, because you find yourself in situations as a DP where, you know, at least personally speaking, for with a lot of the directors that I've worked with, I've been on set way more than they have. And it trickles down, like, my gaffer has probably been on set way more than I have,
Right.
because gaffers working every day, DPs could only shoot so many projects, and directors, you could shoot less
Even
projects.
less.
So it's that bottom up to top down, the experience actually doesn't quite match, but it's about finding that trust in your collaborators that even if on set, I've seen that this coverage doesn't work in the edit 10 times, but if a director has an idea of, "No, this could really be how it works," allowing that to happen. But I'm really bad at that because usually I'm like, "Oh, just last weekend it didn't work. Let's not do this." What's the phrase like, directors should treat each film like it's the last film that they're gonna direct, and cinematographers should treat each film like it's the first film that they shot. So that the
Oh.
jadedness on one end doesn't corrupt, like, the youthfulness of but then working with directors who have more experience than me is equally as challenging because 'cause I'm like, then the insecurity of, "Oh, am I doing a good enough job?" You know? I just saw a clip, a YouTube clip of David Lynch talking to Peter Deming, his cinematographer, and it was so interesting because it was just a behind the scene of David telling Peter to come over, and he was like David was just like, "It should be darker, there should be these shadows, these silhouettes, like, it should be darker." And I've been in so many experiences where directors tell me that, and I'm like, "If I go any darker, you're not gonna see anything in your
Just
editing
flat
with me,
camera.
reshoot in 3 months." But the way that Peter responded to David was exactly from that place of trust of, "Okay, yeah, let's try it." And Peter Deming's a legend, David Lynch is a legend, but still that back and forth and that trust and communication. But I think that's the hardest thing to arrive at because it's easy to learn lenses, it's easier to learn lighting, it's easier to learn the technicals, but the interpersonal collaborations in a very stressful environment, like, that's when I see cinematographers with a lot of experience is really shining because they know how to pull the best out of everyone that they work with.
What a brilliant answer. So back to Layover. I loved it. Vimeo Staff Pick. If somebody's sitting down and they haven't watched it yet, what should they expect? And also the runtime is amazing on it. I felt like I look back and I'm like, wait, it's already over, and it feels like you put so much into it. You must have went over it with a fine tooth comb to edit out anything extraneous. So with somebody sitting down to watch Layover, maybe pausing the podcast, watching it, which you should, like, what should they expect to see?
Man, it's tricky because
It
I
is.
would say watch it first, pause now and watch it, and then listen to what I say. 'Cause so yeah, pause, watch. Alright, now you're back. The film has elements that might seem to insinuate, like, a sense of how should I say this? The film started from a personal feeling, a feeling
Okay.
that I needed to put on a farce in order to return home to those that I loved. And I was searching for a visual way to represent this, because we all know this feeling. As an adult, whenever you come home, especially whether it's to a community, a tribe, a people that may no longer feel like home, what does it feel like to be with those that you love the most in the world, but still not feel like you're being honest or that there's been some sort of failure or moral discrepancy in your lives? And so I was really racking my brain with how to depict that visually, and that's how I landed on the military uniform. And this idea was this image of this guy just changing into a uniform on the side of the road on the way back home. And that's where the film began. And I took it there. A lot of it was derived from personal experiences of like my mom's own health, as well as like the very religious community that I was raised in, yet still am not integrated with in the way that I was in my youth. So it started from an emotional place, and then as things go with writing, directing, editing, screening, and it turns into its own thing, and to a certain extent lose control, especially as a new director, and it becomes its own thing. But that's how I approached it, which hopefully will give more perspective on maybe if people could know that, they could see through the flaws and they could understand really what I was trying to do more.
It's brilliant. I loved it. Did you think about editing it? Because you didn't edit it, correct? You had someone else edit it as well?
I edited along with one of my good colleagues and
Okay.
friends, Kamal, so we
Okay.
co-edited it together, but I was in the editing room for many months. Yeah.
Is that something you think is important for a director as well? To be able to be a part of that editing? Would you feel comfortable on a future project just giving the editing to someone else?
I think that would be amazing. Probably not possible for me, but that'd be amazing. I'm going through that with my next film right now. Me and Kamal are gonna start getting into the room together soon. But that's how you learn. Like, you
Right.
can't learn without editing. There's so many things. That's how you learn as a cinematographer. I think that was one of the biggest blessings as a DP is I would shoot several films a school year, and then we would have to watch them in the rough cut stage in front of all of my classmates and all of my professors, and you just hear the professors ripping apart the visual language, like, "This doesn't work, you needed that shot." So unless you see the process of the editing, not the final edit, because the final edit will always work, but the actual
Yeah.
process of the assembly rough cuts, that's how you really learn both as a director and a cinematographer, and of course, as an editor.
Has that helped you in terms of just maybe not vicious criticism, but, like, just people being, like, critical in a productive way? Is that one of the main advantages of the grad school, NYU grad school?
I would say that's one of the top 3 advantages.
Yeah.
One of my professors always said, "Your relationship to feedback will define your graduate school experience." You
Mm,
could see how people take feedback in the worst way, and you could see how people take feedback to feed the soil. Like, I was
yeah.
just reading what's that? Deakins has a new book out, Reflections.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just got it, and then he included a quote by someone, and I was like, "Wow, that's so true." It was sorry, one sec.
No, I
Like,
love this.
literally right before this podcast, I was just thinking about it. It was a quote, "Art is not what but what you make others see." And I think a lot of people go into film school of art is what I see. I'm a genius, and the world
Right.
is gonna see my art when I go to Cannes with my film. But I think the feedback process, whether it's in grad school or just with your friends or with people you really trust, is sure you have the art that you see, but shaping it in a way that others can see it too, or at least respond in the way that you want them to respond. You're learning your tools so that you can make other people see what you want to see. And if you don't have feedback, it's impossible. Yeah, and we had a lot in film school. A lot. Yeah, which is the best, but now I know how to limit it to really help rather than to get confused.
'Cause, like, you can go too far with it and be directionless and be taking almost a compass varying widely if you're just taking all sorts of different feedback. So, it's interesting you mentioned that. How did you get to that place where you were self-assured enough to listen to feedback, but also at some point decide on your own vision?
I think I'm starting to get better on knowing when to show people things
Ooh,
and knowing because the order of when you show someone a rough cut or a freshly baked script is so important so that you don't write something that you think is brilliant and get feedback too early and suddenly just wanna drop it and just ditch it or just not finish your film because that's the worst. The most important is to finish, and so feedback should help you finish and make the next one. So if it comes too early, it won't let you finish, and you won't want to make the next one because you think you're a terrible filmmaker. So I think the timing of when I get feedback is better and just knowing who I'm getting feedback from. I've known a lot of my people I get feedback for many years, so I know their inclinations, their voice, their tone, yeah.
I love that, Taylor. So, a geeky question on military uniforms before we leave layover. So, did you know they were the outdated uniforms? And then did you also know, like, the way he was wearing it was not the correct way? Like, how far did you dig down into the military uniform
Yeah.
aspect of the film?
It's a really good question because everything about that film I knew exactly because 'cause I'd grown up with it, except the
Uh,
military uniform. But thankfully, one of the people in the years above me at NYU, Andy Brame, he was a veteran, and he really helped me. There were some times where I would just call and be like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help give me help on this?" So he really helped guide it and as I was doing it. In terms of the older one versus the newer, because I think it was in the late 2010s that they switched
yeah,
over, right? Yeah.
yeah, around then, yeah.
Um, again, the idea was that the son is lying to his mom because of an idea of what the mom thinks is noble, and
Exactly.
I think the older uniforms have more of that sense. It's just in the nomenclature of images of that uniform, and, in terms of on camera, I just thought it looked much better than the newer ones. Obviously, the audience from the very beginning knows that this isn't real, like, they're
Yeah,
faking. Like,
right.
I show it in the second minute, and as long as I would know that, like, does the mom know?
Yeah.
And by the end of the film, to me, it's pretty clear that she does, and they're just doing this whole thing to not talk about what they don't wanna talk about.
So just so brilliant, Taylor. I that's how was it different, the finished product than what you thought? Because you did talk a little bit about what you expected going in, but how when you look back and watch it again now, like, how is it different than what you expected?
More or less, the story is the same,
Yeah,
like, the whole day in the life. He starts in one place, he goes back home, he consoles his mother, and he ends up in the same place. That whole trajectory is the same. I think what's different is almost his actual inability to really comfort his mom. What was
mm,
scripted was that he's able to finish the song, and she goes to sleep. She still asks the question, "Are you living well? Are you sure?" "Yes." Like, to me, that was always the climax. But she was actually able to finish the song, but then on set with the actor, he had just forgotten the lines in a very serendipitous way, but he still stayed in it so well, and the actors stayed in it so well that in the edit, I had up until the last month before I locked the picture, I had him finish the song, and I was like, "Let me try this. Let me try and not finish the song." And to me, it worked much better.
so amazing, Taylor. So, whatever you can share, I'd love to hear about Parkside East. You mentioned, it's coming out perhaps next year?
Yeah, yeah, we wrapped
Okay.
production in July, and I'm currently editing it right now.
And then typical festival strategy, what do they talk to you about at NYU about festivals? Is there's 2 ways you can go, right? You could go like the festival strategy, you could go with having it on like a Vimeo or no budge or something like that. What is the school consensus if maybe there isn't I'm sure there isn't a consensus, but
Yeah.
what is like the favored way just the festivals?
I think NYU historically has been a festival feeder
Yeah.
in perhaps not the best ways, and I think the administration and faculty know this, and they're trying to steer us into more modern ways of doing it. I think historically it's been like, yeah, your thesis film will go to Sundance or Cannes or Venice, and you'll make the feature version of that, and then you're cool and you'll be a millionaire. And I would say for the NYU graduate film program, that actually happens to a lot of people. Like once a year, like that kind of is a blueprint. But there's
Yeah.
40 of us a year, not one of us a year. So there has to be a blueprint for other people. And Layover had a nice festival run. SF Film really supported it. And but like for example, I got Vimeo Staff Picks because the chair of my program when I was in school, Julia Salamanov, she brought in the curators for Vimeo Staff Pick to NYU to talk about Vimeo and talk to build those connections because it's all just relationships, connections, programmers. So that was really nice. Without that access, it probably wouldn't have been on their radar. But for Parkside East, I will probably same thing, apply to the festival.
Yeah.
If it gets in, great. If it doesn't, there's a million ways to watch movies online now.
And that leads me to my next question because it is interesting. So Spike Lee had received a production grant from Spike Lee, and that makes me curious. You mentioned like that rundown of wherever they go, and NYU has the connections. Same thing with Spike Lee. Occasionally see a short film saying this received a production grant from Spike Lee. So how does the school handle that? You mentioned like there's 40 of you. Like there has to be somebody out there who's not getting into those or not getting the production grant. And how does that dynamic work of just we're going to do this for these students? You can't do it for everybody. So what is that dynamic like for these production grants or like for getting into festivals because the professor knows the programmer? Like how does that create the dynamic within the school?
It's really tricky, and that's probably the second hardest thing about such a competitive film school besides the finances, and it's directly tied into the finances.
Right.
In terms of the Spike Lee production, like, Professor Spike Lee is given over $1,000,000 in his
That's
lifetime to
crazy.
student films. It's just so generous. In my year, he gave 10 production grants of $10,000 each, and
Wow.
what can I say? And he reads each one, and then he gives them. It's
He's not giving it as like a participation
no,
trophy. He
he
must have
really
liked it.
he genuinely cares, which is amazing. But there's, like, 4 other grants that people could apply to of varying award degrees and people. But I think that's always the discussion the faculty and the administration is having. Should there be the separation of who gets what, access, finances? And it's NYU, it's not a state school. It's like there's varying degrees of financial stability in the program. And so I think it's something we're all really aware on, we're trying to make better. Yeah.
Taylor, are there people graduating who, like, classmates who just realize at grad school that, like, they're not meant for filmmaking? Or is the admissions process that good where you're not gonna have somebody who's not qualified to be in the room?
I think everyone's qualified, everyone's
Yeah,
talented. I only stopped taking classes a year and a half ago, I only walked a half a year ago. So, I've
that's
been working
crazy.
professionally for a year and a half now. So, who knows, that might be me in a month. But
I don't
I don't think it's a matter of talent at all.
Yeah,
I think it really is a matter of re how much resources you are, how much you're able to stay afloat in the industry, I guess how much you could game the system to stay in it, and,
yeah.
yeah, it's historically, I think there's some classes that do really well, and there's some classes that don't. There's a lot of news articles about, like, Columbia, NYU, and the grad programs and how hard it is to make a living after.
Do you feel like your class, like, it should be taken all together? Like, you're basically in the world together, going at the independent film scene as a class, like, I'm sure, like, you share film projects, you're, like, boosting each other on social media, that kinda thing. Is that a good way to think about it? Is, not just Taylor, but just he's got his classmates as his support system for, like, his independent film journey?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't like, Parkside East, it was all my classmates. There was no paid crew. Like, they just gave 5 days of their time to help me out. It was crazy,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, I would be nowhere without them. Yeah, and that's what separates NYU. It's they force you to work with your classmates in the first 2 years, and I think that's the biggest benefit because it builds those relational strength that you wouldn't have unless you were like you had to.
I love
And my
that.
classmates are still the first people I send scripts to, first people I send edits to, everything.
Love that. And for a cinematographer, how much does gear and maybe this question is geared for somebody who doesn't have the access at a film school, but how much credence should you give to the idea of you need to have that RE, you need to have that red camera? Are you one of those guys who thinks, make your film on an iPhone, you can make it happen as long as the story is good? Or is it something like, hey, you should make sure you know the tools of the trade, have at least a decent understanding of the different lenses, your different shots before you go about making a project?
Yeah. I think nowadays it's really cheap to get a high production quality.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, FX3s are like $3,000 now. You could buy
right.
it for the same cost of renting for a week, an ARRI camera,
Yeah.
you know? You just find some person with nice glass and, yeah, boom, you got it. That being said, as a cinematographer, I probably do prefer to shoot on a nicer camera than a non-nice camera.
Of
It's
great.
that's so granted. But no, I think gear should never get in the way. I think with gear, it's not that it's necessarily more expensive, it just comes with more crew usually. The batteries are
Yeah,
bigger, the
right.
monitors are bigger. Suddenly you're a little slower. Like, everything is just a little and suddenly you don't have that freedom of just you, a sound person, a camera person, and the actors, which could be really beautiful. For Park Cities, I told my DP, Leo, I was like, I want no lighting pretty much. So he lit my whole film with pretty much 2 LED tubes, and we had 1 AC and 1 gaffer. Yeah.
Amazing. Alongside with Parkside East, is there anything else that people who love your filmmaking should be looking for over the next few months? Or are there any other projects you're able to talk about?
Yeah, I'm developing my first feature right now. It's called Round.
Ooh,
It follows 2 Korean American families who are trying to find the grace to forgive each other in the aftermath of a gang shooting in the past. And it's of the moment. It deals with themes of religion, deportation, ICE, but also of just interpersonal family dynamics. It's an amalgamation of my whole life thus far and my films thus far. But,
I wanna watch that. I'm dying to watch
if
writing it.
financiers and production's
Yeah.
in my way, yeah. So
Have
right
you
now I'm
finished
doing,
writing?
labs with them and
Okay.
writing the script.
Oh, I wanna see that. Yeah, over the next few years, we might be able to see it that film come to life.
Hopefully, yeah, and before then, Parkside East will hopefully be done by the spring.
Awesome. Indie film podcast, Taylor. Love hyping other people's projects. You couldn't have made it through film school without your crew. Is there a film or filmmaker out there that you wish more people knew about?
Oh, that's a good one. The best film I saw this year is a film called The Love That Remains. I think it's gonna get its theatrical release in January. I saw it at TIFF this past year, and it blew me away. I think everyone should watch it on a big screen with really good sound.
Yeah.
It's the most beautiful film.
Have you been able to show your films like when they are screening for a variety of different class functions? You're able to show it on a theater? Does NYU work with a theater to arrange for like big screen showings?
Yeah, we have a big showcase at the end of the year where we get a pretty big screen, and then for
Okay.
the festivals, thankfully, I've had some really nice cinemas, to show it. SF Film had a nice one. New York Asian Film Festival screened at the Korean Cultural Center, which is a great
Okay.
screen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
'Cause it just so frustrates me that for the most part, when I'm watching films before interviews or whatever, I'm watching on, like, my computer, and I've got a nice screen, but it's still a computer screen, but it's
Yeah.
just and I imagine most of the people who are watching films for programs, festivals, are also watching either on their laptop or computer, and it just seems like for the ways that we judge films for directors and cinematographers who worry about color grading, who worry about all these different things, it ends up in front of somebody's laptop. Just
Yeah.
I don't know, it just seems so wrong to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it doesn't even end up in front of someone's laptop, and it doesn't get past
It
the
is
college
watching
student screeners who just say, "This is too boring." That's my biggest pet peeve with festivals, but I know everyone knows that. What can you do?
it.
Yeah.
Taylor Lee, this has been so fantastic. I wish I could have this conversation with you weekly, just like on going through different film things. I could keep you here another hour talking about independent film and a variety of different questions. I really appreciate your thoughtful perspective on filmmaking. I think it's really important for people to think about all these different issues because it's so hard to get a film made and then to figure out ways in which filmmakers, not only who have gone to film school, but people who haven't, like how to get their projects made, how to get them seen. Like these are so many important questions, and it's obvious that you've thought a lot about it. NYU has done so, given you a great opportunity to learn about the filmmaking craft, and it's really cool for you to be able to share that experience here on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for the time. It was great talking. Feel free to link my Instagram if anyone wants to reach out after this.